I'm in Japan. I still don't understand the answer to this question. So how does Japan successfully manage to maintain deflation, extremely high levels of debt, and QE all at the same time?
Uh, I would focus on the word successful. They've done it for a long time. Yes, they have, but at enormous cost. Young Japanese, in particular, Japanese in their 20s and 30s, and I've been to Japan quite a few times, spent some time there. They now take deflation for granted. Americans don't expect inflation, and we're getting it. But the Japanese almost treat deflation as normal, and they adjust their lifestyles. And Japan has other problems, demographic. I mean, I had this debate with Saki Kabara-san. He was a little before your time, but in the 1980s, he was known as Mr. Yen. He was the assistant minister of finance, and his job was to prop up the yen. And I had a nice lunch with him in South Korea. And I said, kind of question along the lines you're asking, which is, you've been in recession, on and off recessions for 30 years. The lost decade is now 3 lost decades, going on 4 at this point. And, looking at your debt, how are you going to manage all that? He said, Rickards-san, you're missing one thing. He said, which is the population's going down. National figures are sort of weak. On a per capita basis, we're much better off. And of course, he's right. I mean, that's the math. And so I said, okay, so the end game here is there's going to be one person left in Japan, and she's going to own the whole country and be the richest person in the world. But that's the reductio ad absurdum of what Japan is saying. But so Japan's got a serious demographic problem, a serious debt problem, a serious deflation problem. Are they still standing? Yeah, a good export sector, a very educated workforce.
The reader here, Jim, specifically mentions that the monstrous national debt, and when you apply that falling demographic issue, the debt's still rising. But even if it didn't rise, as the population falls, the per capita debt is absolutely soaring. So how are they maintaining that, and why can't the US and the Australia and UK, reach the same sort of absurd debt levels of 200 and whatever % of GDP?
Right. Well, modern monetary theorists say they can. They don't hold Japan up as a cautionary tale. They hold Japan up as an icon. Like, hey, look, they did it. You can do it too. I think that's ridiculous, but that is what they say. And they're in charge, by the way. The average member, I don't know, not familiar with all the members of parliament, probably the same, but the average member of the US Congress has probably never heard of modern monetary theory, but it doesn't matter. They're doing it. Our fiscal policy can only be understood as the enactment of modern monetary theory, which is not surprising because the head of the Senate Budget Committee is Bernie Sanders, and his #1 advisor is Stephanie Kelton, State University of New York, and she's the big brain of modern monetary theory. Her book, The Deficit Myth, is just read it. I quote from it. People go, they would never say that. I said, no, she said it. Read the book. So they actually think the U.S. could take its debt to GDP level to 230 or 280%, which is where Japan is, and it would be just fine. And why not? Because we've got all kinds of unmet needs. It's not sustainable. One of the consequences of debt to GDP in excess of 90%, forget about 280, let's go back to 90. And this is empirically well demonstrated by Carmen Reinhart, Kenneth Rogoff, and many others, a lot of other researchers, is that your growth goes down. That beyond that, there is no stimulus. There's this sort of negative stimulus. Your Keynesian multiplier falls below 1. The classic Keynesian multiplier is I borrow $1, I spend $1, and I get $1.50 of GDP. And that can look like a good deal in the aggregate. But there comes a time when you borrow $1, spend $1, and you only get 80 cents of GDP. You don't even get your dollar back, and then 70 cents and 50 cents and so on. And in that world, your debt is going up by $1, but your GDP is going up by less than $1, which means the debt to GDP ratio is getting higher, which is the whole thing is getting worse. Now, it can go on for a while, particularly if you print. If the debt is denominated in money that you print, you have the printing press, and you got enough ink and paper, digitally speaking, you can keep it going for a while, but you have no growth. And then, so I wrote a paper recently, and to your point, maybe this will answer the reader's question, is the collapse of the yen the canary in the coal mine? Is this telling us something when it's gone from 110 to 130 in the blink of an eye, it's just the world saying, hey, get me out of the end, the game's over. It's too soon to say that, but I wouldn't rule that out.
Yeah, I call it a monetary Pearl Harbor, but let's not go there.